Well, I think you all know what time it is. It is, in fact, time to rage, as we are going to dive into finally getting around to our class specific videos. Now, for those of you who know the scenario that's going on, I can't really show you the book, I can't really pull up the PDF, but I was trying to figure out a way that we could cover what's different from what we saw in the Unearthed Arcana versus what's in the final product, and then it hit me. I'll put up the Unearthed Arcana on the screen, and then we'll just talk through what the differences are. And I do think Barbarian is one of the few where what we saw in the most recent Unearthed Arcana is almost identical to what we got in the final product. So if you're familiar with what changes were made in that process, it's not going to really be that different for you. Now, reminder that we did get the Path of the World tree in Unearthed Arcana 8, and in Unearthed Arcana 7, we got the other three, which was the Wildheart, which is the replacement for Totem Warrior, the Berserker, and the Zealot. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and pull that up here on screen. I will tell you, hey, if you want to win a copy of this, there's a giveaway going live right now. It's free to enter. It's open to everybody. I'll send this to you possibly next Saturday, depending on if you get back to me fast enough. So anyway, that's that. Let's go ahead and dive in. Do the YouTube thing. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. All right, so here is the Unearthed Arcana version of Barbarian from Unearthed Arcana 8. Reminder that once this goes live on D&D Beyond, you'll basically be able to see everything in full version there. So let's go ahead and take a look at our table here. Nothing is different as far as like number of rages, rage damage, weapon mastery numbers. Those are all the same. As far as our proficiencies, saving throws are the same, and looks like the skills are the same, the weapon proficiencies are the same, armor training, etc. Nothing too crazy there. All right. So, rage. What does rage grant you? If we were to look, reminder, I'll read off of the book. You can do the comparison, but we'll talk about it. You can enter a rage as a bonus action if you aren't wearing heavy armor. You can do it equal to what's on the table there. Get one back when you finish. You regain one expended use when you finish a short rest. I don't remember if that was there. Let's see. Okay, it was. So you gain one back when you finish a short rest, and regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. I really like this compared to our existing Barbarian in the 2014. It kind of goes into the mentality of what they've been doing with the 2024 rules update, or 5.5e if you really want to call it a different edition, but they're not going to. So just to not spread confusion, I'll continue to call it 2024 D&D or however you want to. We really need to like lock in a term that everybody uses. D&D 5e 2024, something like that. But I like this because they realize that rage is kind of your whole thing. So you being able to do rage lets you do your whole thing. So getting one expended rage back on a short rest and then all of them on a long rest is a nice little quality of life change. Again, we've got resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing. You deal the additional damage when you make an attack using strength. With either a weapon or an unarmed strike. You get that extra damage. Advantage on strength checks and saving throws. You can't maintain concentration and can't cast spells. And the duration lasts until you don heavy armor, are incapacitated. If it's still active on your next turn, you can extend it by either making an attack against an enemy, forcing an enemy to make a saving throw, or taking a bonus action to extend it. And again, it is now 10 minutes long as opposed to the previous 1 minute in 2014. So it looks like that basically what we see for rage here in the Unearthed Arcana is exactly the same. Same thing with unarmored defense, 10 plus your dexterity and constitution. You still can use a shield. Weapon mastery, again, that is basically the same. It works as you saw there. Danger sense, advantage on dexterity saving throws. Yep, that's the same. Advantage on dexterity saving throws unless you have the incapacitated condition, meaning it no longer has the qualifier. You have to be able to see it. Reckless attack. When you take the first attack on your turn, you can decide to attack recklessly. Doing so gives you advantage on attack rolls using strength until the start of your next turn, which is the same here. and attack rolls against you have advantage. Again, a nice quality of life improvement over our 2014 one, as reckless attack does technically apply until the start of your next turn, so you can recklessly attack on opportunity attacks if you so choose. Primal knowledge here looks to be exactly the same as well. While your rage is active, you can use strength to do acrobatics, intimidation, perception, stealth, or survival. Again, I have a short I haven't released yet, but basically they did retain the rules for like using different ability scores for different skills. That does still exist in 5e in 2024. So it's not like this is the only instance where you could use strength for these other things. It's just giving you the credence to do that in an ability, in a subclass feature, or a class feature rather. I just want to point out, I've mentioned it before. Unfortunately, I think in the video we talked about the Barbarian. Jeremy Crawford had mentioned that the Barbarian could use strength for persuasion, which would be a very interesting thing. And he even explained a scenario where that happened. I think they were either playing with that and then it eventually was not decided on, or perhaps just all of the different rules changes and maybe he thought perception, but he said persuasion. So unfortunately, that's not the case, but feel free to allow your barbarians to do so if you see fit. Extra attack, ability score improvements, all the same. Fast movement, feral instinct is also the same, but reminder now it's it's advantage on initiative rolls, but now several other people have access to that. But surprise now is just disadvantage on initiative rolls. So feral instinct is going to allow you to have advantage. So kind of if you were surprised, it's just a straight roll for you. Instinctive Pounce. This was an ability that came in originally, I think, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Also, you can notice it says you can move, and here move is capitalized and underlined. And that's because they had that weird initial rules about like how movement worked with your different speeds. It doesn't have that in the final version. It just says as part of the bonus action, you enter your rage, you can move up to half your speed. With just, move is lowercase and not capital and not underlined here. All right, so Brutal Strike was the new feature that was added, which changed up the way you use Reckless Attack. So again, it says if you use Reckless Attack, you can forgo one strength-based attack roll of your choice on your turn. So here it said on the next attack roll with your strength-based attack roll. Here it now says on one strength-based attack roll. So you might not choose to use it on the first one. Maybe you use it on the second one. The chosen attack roll mustn't have disadvantage. That is not in here anywhere. So you can already have disadvantage to do the Brutal Strike. If the chosen attack hits, the target takes an extra D10 damage of the same type dealt by the weapon or the unarmed strike. And you can cause one Brutal Strike effect of your choice. Forceful Blow, again, this 15-foot push. And then it says you can move up to half your speed straight towards that target without provoking attacks of opportunity. That is the same. And then Hamstring Blow, the target's speed is reduced by 15 feet until the start of your next turn. A target can be affected by only one hamstring blow at a time, the most recent one, which is an additional thing there. Because previously, as written here, if two barbarians both used hamstring blow on one enemy, they would cut the movement speed down by 30 feet. So they have since removed that, or added the qualifier that you can only be affected by this at one time. And the most recent one will be the one that affects you. Another thing to consider is just that terminology in general across everything. That is a very specific instance where things need to be spelled out, and they are. Meaning that if something like that is not spelled out somewhere else in a different feature for something else in this book, then it isn't like, if they wanted hamstring blow to be usable by multiple people to drop somebody's movement speed to 0, that qualifying language wouldn't be there, is what I'm trying to get at. So like if something says this reduces your movement speed by 10 feet, and it doesn't say you can only be affected by one of these, then in theory, if multiple people can do that, you can continue to degen their movement speed, if that makes sense. Now, the only thing is, previously it looked like you could use Brutal Strike on both attacks. In the Unearthed Arcana here, it says you can forgo advantage on the next attack roll you make on your turn, meaning that I believe, and I had a conversation about this at one point, that you could, in theory, Brutal Strike, because that is an attack roll on the next attack roll you make, and then you, in theory, could Brutal Strike again. Reminder that you are giving up all the attacks against you still have advantage because you've initiated Reckless Attack. However, you are now foregoing the advantage to get this other benefit, but the attacks against you still have disadvantage. I thought that that was a decent enough offset, but based on how things are written in the final version, it says you can forgo advantage on one strength-based attack roll of your choice on your turn, meaning that you couldn't now do it to multiple attacks. So consider that. I again, maybe that was the intention with the original wording, but to me, this is a little bit of a downgrade in that you previously looked like you could use it on both attacks if you wanted to. And now it looks like it's only designed for one. Again, you're getting the guaranteed damage, whereas Brutal Critical in the past was if you crit, you get extra dice. Now it's great to see those extra dice roll and do a ton of damage, but this is a more consistent thing you'll be able to rely on more frequently. All right, Relentless Rage, drop to 0 hit points and don't die. Make a DC 10 con save. Here it was if you succeed, your hit points instead change to a number equal to twice your Barbarian level. That's the same. It increases by 5. Yep, so that's all the same here. In the final version, we have Improved Brutal Strike. This is called Brutal Strike Improvement. Here it's called Improved Brutal Strike. You have new ways to utilize it. The target has a staggering blow, disadvantage on the next saving throw it makes, and it can't make opportunity attacks until the start of your next turn. That's the same. And Sundering Blow. This says your blow leaves them open. The next attack roll made by another creature gains a bonus equal to your rage damage. That has changed to now say, before the start of your next turn, the next attack roll made by another creature against the target gets a +5 to the roll. An attack roll can only gain one Sundering Blow bonus. So, it was, the next attack roll, instead of getting a bonus equal to your rage damage, it just gets a flat out +5. But also, again, because it specifies you can only benefit from one Sundering Blow bonus, assuming you had 2 Barbarians, they could both hit, both do Sundering Blow, and in theory, you could be giving yourself a +10 to that to hit. But that's not the case. All right, Persistent Rage. When you roll initiative, you regain all expended uses. After you regain uses of rage in this way, you can't do so to finish your long rest. It's so fierce, it now lasts for 10 minutes without you needing to do anything. It ends early if you have the unconscious condition, not just the incapacitated condition, or you don't have heavy armor. Okay. Improved Brutal Strike, it now just does 2d10 instead of 1, and you can use 2 different Brutal Strike effects on your turn. That's the same. Indomitable Might, if your total for a strength check or strength saving throw is less than your strength score, you use that. You get now Epic Boon, again, comes online at level 19, which previously was an ability score. You now get an Epic Boon feat of your choice. It recommends the Boon of Irresistible Offense. And your Primal Champion at 20 is your Strength and Con increased by 4. However, now their maximum is 25, whereas here it was 26. So you can't get that extra +1 to your attack and damage rolls, unfortunately. Although the boon, Epic Boon you might take might be able to increase that as well. So there you go. Now that is all of the base Barbarian updates here. You guys said you wanted me to try to do these all as one video. The Barbarian is easier to do so, I think, because of the fact that there weren't a lot of updates. So let's go ahead and jump back to Unearthed Arcana 7 and take a look at our Path of the Berserker. Often regarded as one of the weaker subclasses in the 2014 Player's Handbook because a lot of its stuff involved you taking on purposeful weaknesses and gaining levels of exhaustion to do a little bit more damage. So, Frenzy. If you use Reckless Attack while your rage is active, you deal extra damage on the first target you hit with a strength-based attack. It says here, to determine the extra damage, Roll a number of d6s equal to your rage damage and add them together. The damage has the same type as, okay. It looks like that's the same. So again, a general improvement. The goal, again, with this was Frenzy was you basically originally just trying to gain an extra attack. But the fact that that extra attack was also a bonus action meant that it kind of conflicted with things like Great Weapon Mastery. And ultimately, the benefit of you trying to get an extra attack is to just eke out some additional damage. Here, it is now just a roll of d6s equal to your rage damage bonus. Reminder that is, again, you deal damage to the first target you hit on your turn. So you do get this extra 2d6 damage on one target as soon as you get this ability at level 3. Reminder that this can go up to a maximum of an extra 4d6 because they are dice. That does in fact mean that they can crit and those dice can double, which is exciting. So I like that. We get Mindless Rage at level 6, immunity to Charm and Frightened while your rage is active. And if you have it, it just ends that condition on you, which is, again, what it's written here. Again, a big improvement. Instead of just staving off the Charmed or Frightened until your rage ends, it's just gone now. Retaliation, again, at level 10. When you take damage from a creature within 5 feet, you can use a reaction to make a melee attack against that creature. Same as it was. And then we have Intimidating Presence here. As a bonus action, strike terror into others with Menacing Presence. When you do so, each creature of your choice within a 30-foot emanation originating from you must make a Wisdom saving throw. See here, it had the opportunity that it was within 30 feet or 60 feet if rage is active. That has since been removed. So it is now just a 30-foot emanation, which comes as a radius essentially extending from you. On a failed save, the creature has the frightened condition for 1 minute. At the end of each of the frightened creature's turns, they repeat the save, ending the effect on a success. And then once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest, unless you expend a use of your rage to restore the use of it. It basically, yeah, you use it. So it's essentially the same. The wording is just a little cleaner. I feel like with because the fact that it is a bonus action, that means you can't do it on the turn that you rage. And I feel like probably the most intimidating thing one can do as a barbarian is entering a rage. So if you were going to alter this at all and homebrew anything different, I would say that it could be as a bonus action. So period, as a bonus action, and then add like some qualifying language that says this can be used as part of the bonus action to activate your rage, which I think, like, again, we're talking the whole, like, entering a war cry, entering a rage, that triggers the intimidating presence. Originally, I mean, I don't know we don't know what the monster situation is like with the monster manual, so maybe a lot more things are susceptible to frighten, so it's a lot more powerful of a condition. Because I would also make the argument that perhaps that whenever you enter a rage, intimidating presence just goes off. Not a thing you can continue to do, but whenever you enter a rage, everybody needs to make, enemies need to make a saving throw because you've entered this rage and are giving off this intimidating presence. Again, at higher levels, when you can just kind of, actually, no, I lied. You can never, previously in 2014, at a point you had unlimited rages. You no longer have unlimited rages. You always cap out at a maximum of 6 rages. Reminder, you do get one back on a short rest, and they do last 10 minutes as opposed to a minute. So, I mean, without taking short rests, at most you could do Intimidating Presence 6 times a day. I mean, maybe that's okay, but I do think at the very least it should be as a bonus action. Like, if you're entering a rage, like how that one thing lets you, when you bonus action rage, you can move. I think it should be a part of the rage for Intimidating Presence, but that's just me. All right, moving on to the Path of the Wildheart. This was previously the Totem Warrior, but it's taking on the moniker from Baldur's Gate 3, which is fine by me. So you get Animal Speaker, where you get Beast Sense and Speak with Animals as ritual spells. Wisdom is your spellcasting modifier for these. A nice little bit of flavor things. Reminder, you can't maintain concentration or cast spells while raging, so maybe some out-of-combat fun. All right, then we have Rage of the Wilds. This is, again, whenever you activate your rage, you gain one of the following options of your choice. A lot of these are going to look similar to what we remember from back in 2014, however, with some exceptions. Bear, for example, is now resistance to every, here, big improvement. Here it was in the Unearthed Arcana, when you activate your rage, choose 2 damage types other than force or psychic. Okay, so you had to pick 2. The final version in the book is resistance to every damage type except force, necrotic, psychic, and radiant. So here it was 2 except for force or psychic. Now in the final book, big improvement, resistance to everything except for force, necrotic, psychic, and radiant. And again, I guess the concept here is like that is the other damage types are more natural, whereas force, necrotic, psychic, and radiant are less natural. This also taps into something that I've noticed and I've mentioned before, where anytime we had an ability that would say something along the lines of these weapons or your attacks now are magical for the purposes of overcoming damage resistance, that has since been removed in favor of those abilities giving you the option to do either something like force damage or radiant damage or psychic damage. So those seem to be the more or the less resisted types now as far as things go. So again, a general overall improvement for the Bear Barbarian, turning from 2 damage types to significantly more than that. We have the Eagle. When you activate your rage, you can take the disengage and the dodge action as part of... See, this is what I was talking about. When you activate your rage, you can take the disengage and dash action as part of that bonus action. While your rage is active, you can use a bonus action to take both of those actions. So this again is a slight improvement on the wording here, but it says when you activate your rage and as a bonus active, so flat out disengage and dodge combined as a bonus action is pretty nice. I like that a lot. And then lastly, Wolf. While your rage is active, your allies have advantage on attack rolls against any enemy of yours within 5 feet of you, is what it's written here. Previously in the Unearthed Arcana, it said against any enemy of yours within 10 feet of you. They have reduced that back down to 5 feet in the final version. Again, basically granting pack tactics to your allies. This is pretty good because you are typically going to be in the face of enemies as the Barbarian more often than not. So being able to provide advantage to your allies is big. 10 feet would have been nice, but I understand bringing it back down to 5. Now, level 6 aspect of the wild, they have changed the names here. Here it was elephant, owl, spider. In the final book, it is owl, panther, salmon. So owl is dark vision out to 60 feet, and if you already have dark vision, the range increases by 60 feet. Here it was expertise in either perception or investigation. Elephant was expertise, proficiency or expertise in athletics or insight, and spider was stealth and survival. Those have all kind of been, in every aspect, those are all gone. Those are all gone. We now have owl gives you dark vision out to 60 feet or increases your dark vision. Panther gives you a climb speed equal to your movement speed. And salmon gives you a swim speed equal to your movement speed. However, when you finish a long rest, you can change this ability. So you're not locked in permanently. You have the opportunity to switch around in case you might need a climb speed or a swim speed in the situation you find yourself in. So a little more flexibility there for you as well. All right, Nature Speaker, commune with nature as a ritual, that's the same. And then Power of the Wilds, the last ones we have Falcon, Lion, and Ram. Falcon is while your rage is active, you have a fly speed equal to your speed if you aren't wearing any armor. That's the same. Lion, while your rage is active, any of your enemies within 5 feet of you have disadvantage on attack rolls against targets other than you, or another barbarian who has this active option, or this option active. This option active, yes, that's the same. And then Ram, while your rage is active, you can cause a larger, smaller creature to have the prone condition when you hit it with a melee attack. So they just removed the saving throw from this entirely. Previously, you had to hit them, and then they would make a strength saving throw or have the prone condition. Now, kind of what we've been talking about with some of these spells, they've kind of removed a lot of the options where if you hit something, then it makes a saving throw to do the thing. now basically what they're required, it seems to be, this is my interpretation of it anyway, is that if it's requiring an attack roll to hit, and it does, then the thing happens. So you could either do a thing that forces them to make a save or fall prone, or if it's a I hit you with an attack, then you just get knocked prone. And that's what we see here. If they're larger, smaller, and you hit them while your rage is active, you can cause them to have the prone condition whenever you hit them with a melee attack. That might be the best one, because you can just be cleaving through things and just knocking people prone. Oh, hang on. While your rage is active, you can cause a large or smaller creature to have the prone condition when you hit it with a melee attack. Okay. So it wouldn't... the Gray's weapon mastery wouldn't apply to this, because that's when you miss, you just deal damage. But Cleave, the weapon mastery property most that is available to the Great Axe, is if you hit a creature with a melee attack roll using this weapon, you can make a melee attack roll with the same weapon against a second creature within 5 feet. On a hit, that second creature takes the weapon damage, but you don't add your ability modifier. That's once per turn. So you could have possibly some access to a bonus action attack, your 2 attacks, and Cleave. And as long as you hit and you have the ram feature, you can be like prone, 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 prone. You could possibly knock 4 people prone in a turn with no saving throw, as long as they're large or smaller, which is pretty wild. We're going to skip World Tree and come back to that because the newer version is in Playtest 8. And we'll stop here with the Zealot. All right, so Divine Fury. On each of your turns while your rage is active, the first creature you hit with a weapon or an unarmed strike takes extra damage equal to a d6 plus half your barbarian level rounded down. It's radiant or necrotic. You choose each time you deal the damage. That's the same. Warrior of the Gods. You have a pool of... Okay, when a spell or magic item restores any of your hit points, you can roll a d12 and regain additional hit points equal to the number rolled. You can use this benefit a number of times equal to your Constitution modifier. That has since been changed to, you have a pool of 4 d12s that you can spend to heal yourself. As a bonus action, you can expend dice from the pool, roll them, and regain a number of hit points equal to the roll's total. You get them all back when you finish a long rest, and this die pool increases to 5 dice at level 6, 6 dice at level 12, and 7 dice at level 17. I'm a little bummed that they removed this bit at the end that is, in addition, if a spell such as Raise Dead, you don't need the material components. They removed that entirely from it. I kind of really liked that feature of the Zealot. It was very niche, but it was kind of a nice thing when it happened. But I like this as well. Instead of just having an extra d12 that you can use a minimum number of times per day, you just have a big old pool of d12s that you can roll to heal yourself as a bonus action. So again, it starts as 4 d12s, and you can expend dice from the pool, so you don't have to expend them all either. You start with 4 and you'll end with 7. So that's a pretty decent amount of things, and you get to roll d12s, which aren't super common, so I like that. Fanatical Focus here at 6. Once per active rage. If you fail a saving throw, you can re-roll it with a bonus equal to your rage damage bonus. It says here, if you fail a saving throw while your rage is active, you can re-roll it. Must use the new roll. You can only use this feature once per rage. This has basically the same wording. However, now you also get a benefit to the re-roll equal to your rage damage bonus. So an extra 2 to 4. Not a huge amount, but a nice little quality of life improvement. Zealous Presence. As a bonus action, unleash your battle cry. Up to 10 other creatures of your choice within 60 feet of you gain advantage on attack rolls and saving throws until the start of your next turn. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest or expend a use of your rage to restore it. That's the same. And then Rage Beyond... this was called Rage Beyond Death originally. It has now been shifted to Rage of the Gods instead. It says... when you activate your rage, you can assume the form of a divine warrior. This form lasts for 1 minute or until you drop to 0 hit points. Once you use this feature, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. While this is active, you have a fly speed equal to your speed and can hover, which that is the case. Then it says here it had in the Unearthed Arcana, you can move through creatures and objects as if they were difficult terrain. That has been removed. It also says when you're hit by an attack roll, you can use your reaction to turn that hit into a miss. That has been removed. And it says if the form lasts for 1 minute or until you regain any hit points. Yeah. Oh, and it was when Relentless Rage restores your hit points. So this originally in the Unearthed Arcana relied on you going down to 0 hit points. This is now just a thing you can choose to activate when you go into a rage. So that's, first of all, that is way better in every way because you're just getting a benefit to use this all the time. You still get the fly speed, but instead of the other abilities here, you get the following. Fly speed equal to your movement speed, resistance to necrotic, psychic, and radiant damage, which again, as we've established, are pretty, not super highly resisted. And you get the feature called Revivification. When a creature within 30 feet of you would drop to 0 hit points, you can instead take a reaction to expend a use of your rage to instead change the target's hit points to a number equal to your Barbarian level. So I kind of like that. It fits into the Zealot vibe quite a bit. So instead of, first of all, just more actively useful overall. Resistance to damage as opposed to a thing you have to burn your reaction for to turn a hit into a miss. And then again, that only benefited you. Now, again, when a creature within 30 feet of you would drop to 0 hit points, you can take a reaction to expend whatever usage of rages you have left, but expend 1 to give them. So you learn this at 14. At minimum, you're going to be setting their hit points to 14 instead of 0. And depending on how many rages you have left, you might be able to use this multiple times. And again, this form lasts for a minute. So if you have more rages to burn to do this, if your allies are dropping like flies, you can keep bringing them back. So I really like that a lot. I think Zealot has definitely become one of my favorites. I've never been a fan of Berserker. This version is much better, I will admit. I've still always been a big fan of the Totem Warrior, now the Wildheart Barbarian. I like the options we have here. I like the ability to knock a bunch of stuff prone, the resistances, or just possibly everybody I know always plays Bear Barbarian because of the resistances, at least the 2014 version. I think Wolf might be a lot of fun to just give your, like, to be a tanky support character. But I think so far, and we're going to review Path of the World Tree here in just a second, that Zealot is my personal favorite, I think, by a long shot. I also have a penchant to typically play characters with a divine affiliation of some kind because I just really like the roleplay aspects and the kind of conversations and getting to basically, to some degree, be a conduit for the Dungeon Master by tapping into the power of whatever greater, higher being that I, beseech for power, or in this case, I guess I'm a zealot for them, potentially. All right, and lastly, we have Path of the World Tree. This one, again, was updated here in Unearthed Arcana 8. So we have Vitality of the Tree. When you activate your rage, you gain a number of temporary hit points equal to your Barbarian level. That's the same. And Life-Giving Force. At the start of each of your turn while your rage is active, you can choose another creature within 10 feet of you. They gain temporary hit points. To determine the number of temporary hit points, roll a number of d6s equal to your rage damage bonus. Add them together. If any of these temporary hit points remain when your rage ends, they vanish. So that is the same in every way. Then we have Branches of the Tree here. When a creature you can see starts its turn within 30 feet of you while your rage is active, you can take a reaction to summon spectral branches of the tree around it. Must make a strength save or be teleported to an unoccupied space within 5 feet of yourself or in the nearest unoccupied space you can see. After the target teleports, you can reduce its speed to 0 until the end of the current turn. So that looks to be the same. Just a little clearing up on some of the wording. Also a reminder, just I've mentioned it before, but I'll probably do a video on this, that any creature can voluntarily fail any saving throw. All right, Battering Roots here. During your turn, your reach is 10 feet greater with any melee weapon that has the heavy or versatile property. As Tendrils of the World Tree extend from you. When you hit with such a weapon on your turn, you can activate the Push or Topple Mastery property in addition to a different mastery property you're using with that weapon. So here it says, wield a melee weapon when you hit, push, or topple, in addition. Yeah, so that looks to be the same. So that's nice, additional benefits for your weapon mastery property. And then lastly, we have travel along the tree. When your rage is active and as a bonus, or when you activate it and as a bonus action while it's active, your rage, you can teleport up to 60 feet to an unoccupied space you can see. In addition, once per rage, oh, did they nerf it? They nerfed it. Okay. In addition, once per rage, you can increase the range of that teleport to 150 feet. In the Unearthed Arcana, it was 500. When you do so, you can bring up to 6 willing creatures who are within 10 feet of you. Each creature teleports to an unoccupied space you can see within 10 feet of your destination. Yeah, so it says you can teleport other creatures with you only once per rage. And it says in addition once per rage. Yeah, so they kept the 6 willing creatures, but they nerfed the range from a 500-foot range, which is essentially like a barbarian dimension door, to only 150 feet. So that's a little bit of a nerf compared to the Unearthed Arcana, but for the most part, Path of the World Tree arrived just as you saw it there. So overall, again, the Barbarian is one that didn't get a lot of updates between the Unearthed Arcana and the final version of the book. But reminder that the Barbarian was in like updated in 7 and in 8. So it was updated in the most or the closest to a release Unearthed Arcanas. When we dive into something like, say, the Bard, for example, the Bard was one of the first classes we got in Unearthed Arcana, and it went through a bunch of ups and downs, which I think is something we often saw with a lot of the older ones that were reviewed early on. They and I this is just speculation on my part, but it does feel to me that they were more willing to take risks with the subclasses and the classes that were brought on early in the Unearthed Arcana process, throwing out a bunch of different stuff and seeing what stuck. And I think we saw that as a general kind of overarching thing across the entirety of Unearthed Arcana, right? Because we had the different groups that we had, like the warriors and the experts and all that other kind of stuff. And then we had the specific spell lists of arcane and divine and primal or whatever it was. We saw all of those, and then that all went away. But I feel like as that kind of major stuff was left behind, that like we were experimenting with a lot of things in the early classes. We also experimented with the, standardizing all the subclass levels, right? Everybody getting their features at the same level, whereas they landed on just subclasses starting at 3 and then everybody else has whatever. I personally don't like that. I might make another video on that in general, but this is an opportunity I'm going to talk about it, is that I think everybody should have had a standardized subclass feature levels, like 3, 6, 10, 14 is across the board. That's what everybody gets, as opposed to, like I said, clerics getting their last subclass feature at 17, bards not even getting a feature at 6. Like, it's weird. Or maybe it's not 10, I forget. I think theirs is 3, 10, and 14, or 3, 6, and 14, whatever. I feel like there was an opportunity there to standardize, and we kind of moved away. But what I was getting at is the classes that were closer to the release of the physical books and the actual book release seem to have been much closer to what we got. The Unearthed Arcana was closer to the final product. I don't know if that's just due to the nature of the timing of we're getting close to needing to launch these books, so we have less time to play around and alter things, or they just kind of figured out what they wanted to do over time and kind of landed on, okay, this is the kind of power fantasy we're going to look for in these classes. This is the kind of balance we're going to look for in these classes. So when we design the ones we're going to put in Unearthed Arcana, we have a much clearer aspect of what we want to do. And that's why they're so close. Or, you could be, if you're more cynical about it, say they're closer to it because they just didn't have the time to test these things. And I really don't know what the answer is, but like I said, sorcerer, barbarian, and I think monk, druid, were the most recent Unearthed Arcanas. So I think it was barbarian, druid, monk. So they are, again, the ones that are closest to the version you'll have in the final book. things like the Rogue, things like the Bard, things like the Ranger that were from the original Unearthed Arcana have gone through some iterative changes over time. So we'll talk about those in the future. Let me know. This was one video encompassing everything. Like I said, obviously minus this ramble here at the end. This was less than an hour, but like I said, the Barbarian was so similar to it. There wasn't a lot of back and forth to discuss. So another thing that I just want to take an opportunity here to remind you of. Well, let me finish my previous thought. If you like this where it's all in one with timestamps in the video description, cool. If you'd rather have me kind of, if we're thinking maybe these are going to get too long and you'd rather have subclasses as their own video, let me know in the comments. Another thing is once we get through all of this, it'll be an ongoing series of comparing this to its Tales of the Valiant counterpart from Cobalt Press to kind of just give you a back and forth to see where, really more than anything to provide you both options to talk about them and then also kind of give you my opinion of which one I think is stronger overall. And then also the next set, that may be intermingled with that is going back and picking up old subclasses that didn't get updated in the 2024 book, specifically those ones that really needed a tweak and an update. And those will be doing videos or maybe even live streams where we take that and build an updated version of those to release for you guys to possibly be able to use in your games if you like. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.